Director, Strategic Initiatives, Democrats Abroad, Angela Fobbs joins me now from Germany to discuss the controversy over the 5-year-old that was detained by ICE and the intervention of the U.S. judge. She is now free. Angela Fobbs, I am sure that that brings a sigh of relief, seeing that he's been freed alongside his father. But what are your thoughts on the judge's decision to release Liam and his father? And do you believe it sets a precedent for future immigration cases?
Well, I think we all welcome the judge's decision to release Liam and his father. And it recognizes something really basic that children shouldn't be collateral damage in immigration enforcement. I hope that this sets a precedent because in the last Trump administration, they took thousands of children, some of which we've never been able to find from their parents. And we can't keep harming children in this very specific way.
Well, Fobbs, how do you respond to critics who argue that the detention of Liam and his father was necessary for national security? And what do you think is the most humane approach to immigration enforcement? I mean, there are reports that the father was an alien in the United States, not having the U.S. Citizenship. So it's like, arresting the father, who, by the way, according to reports, also abandoned the son.
Well, the reports are wrong. He didn't abandon his son. That's just what DHS made up. They continue to lie about what they're doing and how it relates to other people. But I think that when critics say that detention is necessary for national security, what they're really saying is that they don't want any non-white people in America. That is an extremely racist stand that this man and a child, a school-age child, are a danger to national security. Are we the land of the free and the home of the brave? Or are we just cowering in a corner because there's a toddler?
Sparking questions there, bringing the race into the conversation. But let me take you to the judge's ruling. He criticized the government's pursuit of deportation quotas, saying it led to the traumatizing arrest of a child. Do you think this is a widespread issue? And what steps would you recommend, for the U.S. to take to address it?
Well, I believe that this is widespread. Stephen Miller stated quite clearly that they wanted to deport a certain number. I think it was 3,000 a day. This is really the same as when the police do quotas on writing tickets for speeding. This means that you're just going to pick people up to meet your quotas and not actually consider anything about the situation or what is actually happening. So, as long as you have these numerical quotas, then you're constantly going to have people that are picked up by mistake. You're going to have US citizens picked up by mistake. And we need to actually ban these deportation quotas and informal targets because that's not how you determine whether someone needs to be deported because you have a number. That will actually mean that you just are deporting people because they're not American.
Let's talk about more about Liam's case. His case has sparked, as you know, outrage and protests across the country. What message do you think this sends to immigrant communities?
Well, it it on one hand, it confirms the fears that many immigrant families already have. They're afraid that their children are not safe, they're afraid they're not safe. And on the other hand, the public outrage and the protests show something just as important, that they are not alone, that we care for them, and that there's a broad coalition of people that refuse to accept the treatment of immigrants that the Trump administration is doing as normal.
This brings me again back to the issue of, immigration and people who, move, migrate from one clime to the other. The issue with Liam's father has clearly been stated as someone who probably didn't have his passport or something. How best do you think immigration should handle these issues, or even states should handle issue, or do we just have a situation where anyone who wants to move to the U.S. can just voluntarily move to the U.S. without documents?
Well, that's not entirely the way that it should be handled, that people should just be able to move to the United States without proper documentation. However, However, we need to make an immigration system that is actually functional, that doesn't take 20 years for someone to come in legally, or even 10 years is too long. In other countries, the immigration system is much easier, and it's not as if we don't need people from other countries to come in and do work. People that come from other countries are not taking up resources. They're actually working and giving back. So we need to figure out a way to make it safe for people to immigrate to the United States and easier for them to do it. And it's not such a lawsuit and torment just to get into the United States that causes people to come here illegally, and that's where people have their problems. So we've got to fix the immigration system to make it simpler and easier and still maintain whatever safety they think that they're maintaining.
I know you're not a lawyer, but I know that you have a full knowledge of this. Is it possible for Liam's father to sue, for traumatizing a child as young as what, 5 years old, keeping him in custody that long?
If it was any other administration, I would say he could probably sue. But given the Trump administration and the way that they've manipulated the Supreme Court, I am not sure that there is a lawsuit, but he should try. I mean, all they can do is say no.
Okay, finally, before I let you go, what role do you think Congress, we've talked about Congress time and time again, but what role should they play in addressing immigration reforms, and what specific changes would you propose to the current system on ground?
Well, Congress does have a central role. It writes the laws that shape the entire system. And right now, we have a lot of outdated statutes, inconsistent standards, and too much discretion without accountability. What we need to do is, what would be great is if Congress would abolish ICE and then think about how this Department of Homeland Security, which came about after 9/11, is it actually a functional organization, or will it require changes to bring it into the actual 21st century so that it's not just abusing people and taking their children and harming people? I mean, the children that are enduring these raids will be scarred for their whole life. And I don't think that any of us actually want that. I mean, except for the white supremacist Christian nationalist people. But it's unfair, and the United States can be better than this. We don't have to harm people.
All right, thank you so much for coming on Arise America. Angela Fobbs, the Director, Strategic Initiatives, Democrats Abroad.